Hello, everyone, and welcome to NorthStar community. Always glad you join along to hear what we talk about here. And a lot of stuff we certainly talk about in our weekly support group meetings. And so you're always welcome to come. We meet on Wednesdays and Fridays at 6:30 here at Walnut Grove Baptist Church here in Mechanicsville, Virginia. If you are not local, we appreciate you listening. If you ever want to reach out to me, you can email me at csimpson@wgva.church. So one of the big things we talk about at North Star community is toxic shame, and we have to understand the difference. There's shame, and then there's toxic shame. So shame is I feel bad because I accidentally hurt someone, or I did hurt someone, or I did something wrong, or I made a big mistake. That's shame. Good for us. We need to learn so we don't keep doing things not the right way. But toxic shame says I am a mistake. So instead of making a mistake, I am the mistake. And that is such a huge difference when we're looking at who we are. And I believe that toxic shame is really what is the driving force of so many of our addictions. And again, remember, our addictions are substances, compulsive behaviors, and then people, where we get ourselves giving ourselves up to people or over functioning or under functioning, all because we don't like ourselves. So we talk about this a lot in our support meetings, that if we could get a handle on our toxic shame, if we could just get it down some, our lives would be so much better. And for some of us in there, we're starting to catch glimpses of what a rich, full, meaningful life looks like: purpose, gratitude, connection, love, faith, all those things. And some of us even get glimpses of that, but because we have so much shame, it's just almost impossible for us to uh, enjoy it. So we're going to talk about toxic shame a little more, get a little more in depth here. So the three tenets of toxic shame are atrophy statements, which means our inner critic yaps in our ear all the time, making sure that we don't feel good about ourselves, making sure we don't take too big a risk, or maybe take too big a risk, and keeping us feeling like we're never enough. So that's atrophy thinking. And then, of course, the glass ceiling of mediocrity. We'll never get above mediocrity, which leads to the third, which is we see ourselves as never enough. So isn't it odd that we would sit here and say to ourselves, we're never enough, but I don't want to get better than mediocre? It is certainly contradictory in it. So let's talk about this a little bit more. So those are the three tenets. Keep those in mind. Insulting, critical views of ourselves that we tell ourselves a lot. The glass ceiling of mediocrity. We don't feel comfortable when we exceed mediocre. And then third, of course, is that we see ourselves as never enough. So it's really difficult to live with these concepts. And for some it's very strong. And maybe for others it's not so much, but it's tough for us. So here's the first thing we have to do is and we'll use shame versus toxic shame. We could also use the language of guilt versus shame, but we'll do shame, toxic shame. So shame makes us take a long, hard look at ourselves, so that we'll be more careful the next time. If we start getting overconfident, we'll do something dumb. We will feel that, and we won't do it again. Or if we maybe don't really think about how we're harming other people with our humor, or maybe we harm someone by accident, or even if on purpose, but we feel bad about it. And so shame is here. So the shame is here. The good part is here to remind us that we have limits, and we do have limits. We all make mistakes, and the problem with toxic shame is we get caught up in this perfectionism about we won't be loved and validated if we're not perfect, if we're not great, if we're not grandiose. So a lot of times what do? We just don't try, or we pull away, we withdraw, or we put all this crazy pressure on ourselves to be all the things that we don't need to be. We are not God. We have to understand that. We're only human, and to be human is to be limited. And it is to be finite, it's to be needy, it's to be prone to mistakes, it's the ability to love, the ability to be empathetic. And you see, those are limits for us, but when we don't have that, we don't live with limits. So we're not perfect. It's a guaranteed part of being human. And the shame that's healthy shame keeps us from making mistakes. That's the point here. And by trying to help us act more human, And and then if we don't make mistakes, then we think we become as if we're unlimited. So toxic shame beliefs are that we're basically flawed as a person and we must be perfect to be loved. We either have too little or too much limits or no limits. Think about, for many of us, never heard of the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. And once we took it, once we heard about it a little bit, we started to go, this makes sense. This puts logic to my pain. These are the things that I've been fighting against and didn't even know it. So we become aware of those things. It helps us to create limits about what we're doing, what we're not doing, and start doing the right things. We don't want toxic shame to be our core identity. And that's what so many of us have. Deep down, how many of you, I just hear this so much, how many have said, I never felt like I fit in, like in high school or middle school. I never felt like I fit in. I always felt like there was something wrong with me. And then a lot of times we found substances, or we found other people with compulsive behaviors, or we found toxic people and got over involved. And next thing we knew, we were ruining our lives with addictive behaviors. And so when shame becomes our core identity, with us covering our pain with all the crazy addictive behaviors, it gives us a sense of worthlessness. And it gives us a sense of always failing, always failing. So healthy shame equals realistic limits. And again, none of us want shame. None of us like to feel shame. None of us wants to repeat shame. And that's the beauty of it. Healthy shame helps us set limits on our behavior. If I want to talk too much about someone and I hurt them accidentally even by what I said, I learn from that and I don't do it again. There's just so many examples of this, of where we make mistakes and we don't like the pain of mistakes. We don't like the shame we feel, so we do something different. So shame reminds us of our limits, our values, our humanness. And without shame, we have no limits. And this leads to delusions of grandeur. How many of us in our addictive states live with bravado, act as if we need no one, that we're above all that, we're big and bad, blah, blah, blah. When the fact is, what we're doing is we're creating these elaborate fictional fantasies of power, success, fame, glory, all these things that cover up our pain from our trauma. Trauma is everything. You have trauma, you cannot turn the clock back, but you can move forward and you can actually turn trauma into making you a better person. I was going to say you can turn it to a gift. That may be a little strong, but you only have two choices here with trauma. Well, three probably. One is it can destroy you. Two, you can just live numbly and not really do anything, which would be destroy you, and live with toxic shame. Or you can become aware of how the trauma is affecting you today, how the past still haunts you, and how you do things to compensate, how you still use addictive behaviors to keep you from having to feel the pain of your past, all those things. But what it does eventually makes you a better person. You certainly have limits on you. You certainly understand you better. You understand the things you've done, but you also become there for other people, and that's what it's like. So the problem is, if we don't know our limits, if we have no direction, we'll try to go everywhere at once, resulting in no net movement. We might try to be jack of all trades, but we'll definitely end up being the master of none. Shame is what tells us our limits, and it signals our direction. If we keep doing something over and over, we keep feeling shame, we keep harming ourselves, we keep harming others, we feel bad about it, that is a street sign for us to go in a different direction. With healthy shame, we can use our energy more effectively and not waste ourselves on goals we cannot reach or on things we cannot change. So we either we stifle or we live with bravado. And trust me, living with bravado is not a good thing. If any of you are sitting there thinking it is, it's not. Because the bravado is this arrogant, megalomaniac behavior, covering up your inadequacies and the anger you have toward yourself. And so we have to look at ourselves in a kind of on a continuum. We have limited to limited to unlimited. Sorry, let's do it again. Limited to limitless. We don't want too many limits because we won't get anything done. But if we limit less, we will harm ourselves either with too much addictive behaviors or acting out behaviors, driving too fast, drinking too much, fighting too much, all those things, taking risks we should never take. That's living with bravado and by yourself. That's the problem with bravado. Most of the time, people around you don't want to be around you. So, when we see ourselves as unlovable, unworthy, we either withdraw or we overfunction. How many of us in here, we're codependent? That's what we're doing. We're overfunctioning with people because of how much we don't like ourselves, and we don't believe anyone else can like us, so we overfunction. We talked about this earlier. We see ourselves as odd or different. We might start using drugs or drinking because that group will accept me, right? We isolate from people. Maybe we overfunction online but underfunction in person. We may feel weak and scared, but we have road rage. I mean, you can see how this all works. Afraid to try new things, or we recklessly live, tempting fate. I mean, as we for you that have heard me talk about this, the ACE score, if you score 6 or higher without intervention, you on average will die 20 years younger than someone who scores 0 on the ACE. So tells you a lot about living without limits, right? So here's the key. You are human. I know, it's crazy, huh? So healthy people identify, admit to, and change behaviors so they don't feel more guilt or shame. In toxic shame, we deny, we hide, we blame, we resent. We don't fix the mistake. We try to hide it. And we keep doing stuff because we hate ourselves so much. Sometimes we even act like it was done on purpose. So here's the thing. We can continue to live with this false sense of bravado, living without limits, or living with too many limits. Feeling we gotta be perfect and exciting and drama for people to pay attention to us. People wouldn't possibly like us just as we are because we don't like ourselves just as we are. We trace it back. Almost everybody has addiction, has trauma and abandonment and childhood neglect in their lives. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to overcome that. So just remember this. It isn't what we have done or not done. It's how we've interpreted what we've done. And toxic shame makes us interpret things way worse than they probably were. And it gets us to see ourselves as far worse than warranted. So just think about this week. Here's a couple questions for you. What beliefs do you have about you that keeps your toxic shame alive and well? And worse, maybe it's a harder question, what pleasure do you get from all this toxic shame? And one of the things, a hint to you here is that with toxic shame, we're never going to get comfortable being successful. And if we do become successful in some ways, we will never feel like it's enough. And then we'll sabotage ourselves. So one of the things that we do is that toxic shame keeps us emotionally safe so that we don't take big risks, so that we don't go out and harm ourselves, so we don't fail again, right? It's not real. You can't have a rich, full, meaningful life. Think about that. A rich, full, meaningful life filled with love, connection, faith, gratitude, all the things that we need. So this week, think about some of the things you've faced in your life that were tough, that were bad, and try to put some gratitude to it. It will help you get better. If you have perpetrators in your life who have harmed you deeply, then think about praying for them to be successful. In fact, pray for them to be wildly successful and let God determine what that is. So, thank you for joining today. We've talked about toxic shame. Again, it's the atrophy thinking, it's the never enough, and it's mediocrity. Last week we talked about accepting the fact that we're worthless in some ways, which is a great example of meaning about limits. And then we talk about limits. You have to have limits. Living too much limits is a problem. Living unlimited is a dangerous thing. It's also very addictive. So I hope this helps you. We just are so excited to be on the road to recovery. At NorthStar community, we do have substance abuse addicts, but we have so many people are there due to their codependency and their compulsive behaviors. So don't narrow it down to just having to be a substance addict to come. So we love to have everybody come. We have childcare. We feed you. We're having Chinese from Peking tonight. So yay, it's going to be good. So we'd love to have anybody that wants to come join us. Hiding, isolating, Trying to cover up your toxic shame is not the answer. It's exposing your shame, talking about your shame, moving past your shame, and then being there for others is what it's all about. God loves you, and God has a plan for you. So don't ever forget that. So let's close with prayer of serenity. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that Jesus will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonable